This is the Louie Tee Network.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to Lockdown Coverage, week number 12 in the National Football League. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who saw this coming? I'm not sure the most loyal of Buccaneers fans saw this coming. This was pure domination here. And even though the scoreboard might not indicate just how much the Bucs dominated this game, trust me when I say this was pure domination on the part of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this football game over the Seattle Seahawks. We're going to break this game down here in a second, but first, subscribe to the Louie Tee Network for more great content in 2016 and beyond. We're looking to change the game. I want you to help me do that. Hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to the Louie Tee Network on YouTube. Also, I'm on Twitter. @InTheLabRoom is the Twitter handle. Go ahead and follow me there. And I'm also on Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. Give me the thumbs up. So, in recapping, go ahead, follow me on Facebook, In the Lab Room, Twitter, @InTheLabRoom, and also on YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. All my social media platforms up above in the upper middle column there. Scrolling across the screen, you can't miss any of them. Let's jump into this breakdown. Likes, dislikes, banana in the tailpipe for these two teams in this football game. And this was one of those outcomes that I couldn't predict. I thought I knew what was going to happen. And this is why this league is so great, because you think you know, but week after week we find out you have no idea what is going to happen in this league. And the thing that kills me with this Buccaneers team is the inconsistency. We can't get this out of them every single week. You can't get this kind of performance out of them. One week, the defense looks like gangbusters. Almost makes you think back to the early 2000s when they were dominant and winning Super Bowls or winning a Super Bowl. And going to the NFC Championship almost every year, it seemed like. And then one week, the next week, the offense is turning it over. They can't stop anybody, and they're giving up 38 points. You just don't know which Buccaneers team is going to show up. And so this game is somewhat head-scratching, but it's also encouraging if you're a Buccaneers fan. Let's break this game down. Likes, dislikes, banana in the tailpipe. I'm going to start with the road team, as we customarily do, and their likes from the first half. And I'm going to tell you what, there weren't many things to like from the Seattle Seahawks in this football game. As a matter of fact, the only thing that I liked in the first half from the Seahawks was drawing the safety on Luke Stalker in the end zone to get 2 points and get on the scoreboard. They were down 14-0. They were desperate, and they were able to draw. I think it was Frank Clark who was able to draw the holding penalty on Luke Stalker in the end zone to get them a safety. They would later tack on a field goal, and they would get 5 points in the first half. And at that time, we didn't know, but that would be the only 5 points scored. And hell, there would be no more points scored in this game after the score reached 14-5, as that would end up being the final score in this game. So that was the only thing that I liked from the Seattle Seahawks. I thought the defense let them down early, allowing the Buccaneers to go and score 14 early points in this game. I thought the offense was dreadful all game long. It starts up front with that offensive line. They were horrible, and the Buccaneers took full advantage. So there wasn't much to like, and so we move on to the Buccaneers and their first half likes in this game. A tremendous opening drive. Moved it right down the field. Jameis Winston taking what the defense is giving him, used his legs when he felt necessary, handed it off to Doug Martin a couple of times. That drive just kind of set the tone for what was to come in that first quarter. Okay, they didn't sustain that throughout the course of the game, but that was a tremendous opening drive. Again, no Earl Thomas, no Deshaun Shedd. They took full advantage of that. They went right after that Seattle Seahawks secondary, and they had some success. And they got out, and really, I'll take it a step further. My next start to the game, starting 14-0 on the big, bad, vaunted Seattle Seahawks to jump those boys early in the game. I think it sent a little shock to their senses. They didn't expect that out of the gate. I don't think they expected to walk into the buzzsaw that was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this game. And I think that 14-0 lead really put them on their heels. They never really recovered from that 14-0 start that the Buccaneers put on them in this game. And that allowed the defense to really sink their teeth into this Seattle Seahawks front. And I thought the defense really took it to Seattle in this game. We're going to talk about this Buccaneers defense a little bit later on. But Mike Evans is the next, huge start to the game for him. 2 touchdowns on the first 2 possessions. Had a big catch on Richard Sherman. Sherman was complaining about him pushing off. Are you kidding me? You should be the last guy complaining about anybody touching anybody. Mike Evans was outstanding. Over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns in this game. And that's what he can bring to the table. I'd like to see him be more consistent, catch the football, do the things that we know he's capable of, because he's a dynamic number 1 receiver in this league. He's a playmaker. And when he's on, this offense is very viable. When he's not, this offense is less than stellar, because there isn't much help for him other than Cameron Brate. In my eyes, there isn't much help for him on this roster as a skill guy catching the football on his football team. So I love Cameron Brate. I love Mike Evans. After that, the rest of these guys are just parts, replaceable, movable parts on this Buccaneers football team. Doug Martin, you know what? I noticed watching this game, I noticed just how important Doug Martin is. Because when he was out, I'm saying to myself, does he make that much of a difference? I really couldn't tell. And I know how good of a football player this guy is when he's healthy. And I said, how good is Doug Martin? What does he really mean to this Buccaneers team? And I saw his worth in this game. There were a number of plays where he's jump cutting and making guys miss, taking a 2-yard loss, turning it into a 3-yard gain, taking a 1-yard gain, turning it into a 5-yard gain. There's one play where they throw a little screen, a lateral almost, to him out of the backfield, and he bobbles it a little bit. He catches it, makes 2 defenders miss, gets up the field on a 3rd and 8 and gets the first down. That's what Doug Martin brings to the table. He's very shifty, underrated in terms of agility, makes guys miss out in space, gets the extra yards. He's a tough runner, downhill, hard to hit and square up because of his size. I think he brings a lot more to the table than I was giving him credit for, and I saw it in this game. Didn't eclipse 100 yards rushing, but what he did was he stabilized this offense. And when they can't run the football, when everything's put on the shoulders of Jameis Winston, you don't get the type of numbers that you got out of Winston in this game. I think he was 21 of 28 or something like that, and he only threw 1 interception. You don't get those types of numbers out of Winston. You get sporadic numbers. You get a bunch of turnovers. You get a bunch of incomplete passes. You get a offense that doesn't sustain itself. But when you have balance, which is what Doug Martin brings to the table, then you have the type of performance that will allow you to win football games with this Buccaneers team. And then the Alteron Werner interception. We all know the story about his dad passing away a couple days ago and how traumatic that was for him, and him coming out and playing and making that play. It just was it was surreal almost. The emotion came out on the sidelines for him after he made the play. It was a nice scene for him, and at a time when he really needed something good to happen for him. And that was a big play in the game, because if Seattle gets a field goal there, not a touchdown, just a field goal there, it trims that lead to 1 score at 14-8, and all of a sudden now it's a different ball game. Instead, he gets that interception, keeps them from getting any points before the half, and kept that lead out at 9, which was 2 scores, which was very important for securing this win for the Buccaneers. You go to the first half dislikes in this game. No Earl Thomas for the Seattle Seahawks. We knew that going into the game. Again, much like Doug Martin and his absence from this Buccaneers lineup, I didn't really know what that meant. It never seen the Seattle Seahawks without Earl Thomas since he's been in the league. So I couldn't really picture what that meant. I've seen no Cam Chancellor. And maybe what this showed me is that you can go without Cam Chancellor. You can't go without Earl Thomas. He does so much for that defense. He flies around. He covers so much ground as that free safety, as that guy roaming around in that cover 3 and covering all of that space. Cam Chancellor can't do that. He's an underneath defender. He's not a guy that's going to cover sideline to sideline, come up, also drop down in the box. Not going to run with anybody's slot receiver. Not going to do any of those things that Earl Thomas can do. And so his presence was dearly missed. I think that's why you saw the explosion early in this game from Mike Evans, because there was no Earl Thomas out there. But no excuses here. No excuses to be made. They got beat by the Buccaneers, who dominated them in this game. Wilson throwing the interception. I talked about that already. Bad. I'm trying to decide and figure out if the receiver was supposed to cross face of Alteron Werner, or if that was just a bad throw by Wilson. I couldn't make up my mind as to what was going on, what I was actually seeing, because it happened so fast. I'm thinking that receiver was supposed to cross face of the defender, but it just wasn't a good throw. It wasn't a good day for Russell Wilson. He didn't throw the football well. He didn't make good decisions. I thought on numerous occasions he could have kept it on read option. They were giving him the edge. I think he's still banged up. And I thought he was starting to get healthy, but I think I was wrong because he had opportunities to run and he didn't take it in this game. And I'm thinking it's because, and he had 80 yards rushing. It's not like the guy didn't run in this game, but I just didn't think he was seeing the field well. And he threw some bad balls, a couple of costly turnovers. I thought he could have made some different plays in this game, and he didn't. So I didn't think it was a really good game at all for Russell Wilson. Give some credit to the Buccaneers defense, but also I think Russell Wilson just was in a little bit of a funk and a little bit of a haze, and I think a lot of that was caused because of this Buccaneers defense really giving it to him in this game. Again, we're going to talk about that Bucs defense and how they stifled and stymied this Seattle Seahawks offense. You go to the first half dislikes for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Luke Stalker with the safety. Talked about that already. Can't tackle a guy in the end zone. Come on, got to be better than that. PI on Bradley McDougald that set up the field goal attempt for the Seattle Seahawks. Their only offensive score of the game, which was really aided by that pass interference by Bradley McDougald. I mean, they really didn't earn any points in this game offensively, did the Seattle Seahawks. Brent Grimes drops an interception. Seattle gets the field goal off of that possession. If he picks that off, it would have been similar to the Alteron Werner interception where you take points off the scoreboard, or at least a scoring opportunity. And he had an opportunity. Russell Wilson threw it right to him again. Wilson struggled in this game with reads, with accuracy, with decision-making. And that was one of those plays where I thought there was a chance to be an interception to be made there and an opportunity to take a point-scoring opportunity off the scoreboard. And then what's new, Roberto Aguayo misses a field goal from 48 yards. He was the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. Good for him. He comes back, misses a 48-yard field goal. It's what I expect from him. Again, I'm not going to beat this guy up anymore. I've done it enough this season. You know how I feel about Roberto Aguayo, Mr. Automatico. All right, let's get back to the likes, and we go back to the second half, and we go back to the Seattle Seahawks. Fumble recovery. Doug Martin lays it on the carpet. Seahawks able to recover the fumble. Don't do anything with it, obviously, because they were still stuck on 5 points at the game's end. But forcing that fumble did give them a little bit of life. But as you saw throughout the course of the game, they just didn't have it offensively. And they made a ton of mistakes of their own in this game. Cam Chancellor with the interception in the end zone. After it appears the Buccaneers are going to put this game away with a Cameron Brate touchdown. It's called back due to a hands to the face penalty by one of the offensive linemen. And so the very next play, again, this is the things that kill me with Jameis Winston. You got a situation here where, okay, so they take away your touchdown. It's third down. You're still in field goal range. What are you doing here, buddy? Double coverage, really, in the corner? Stop it. What are you doing, man? You can't do this. And that's why I don't have a lot of confidence in this Buccaneers team. Because every game I know Jameis Winston is going to do this at least once, possibly twice in the football game. He's going to throw at least one interception, and there's going to be at least one more throw where I say, what the hell were you thinking there? Like, you can't do that. This was the one in this game. This was even more egregious than the actual interception. Or this was the interception, I should say. This was one of those brain farts where you just say, hey, Jameis, what were you thinking? What did you see there? Why did you think that was a smart decision there? And I don't think he's got an answer for you there. They just throw it up for grabs in the corner of the end zone. 2 Seahawks defenders, 1 Buccaneer receiver. I don't understand. And in any event, it's picked off, and you take a scoring opportunity, which probably would have been missed anyway, which might go into his thought process there. Well, Roberto's going to miss any damn way. I might as well take a shot in the end zone. I hope he's not thinking that way. But in any event, don't do that, Jameis. Don't do that. Moving right along, though. You go to the Buccaneers' likes in the second half of this game. Forced fumble to Jimmy Graham and the return of that fumble to the Seattle Seahawks 25-yard line by Levante David. a crucial play in the game because this was one of the few times the Seahawks looked like they were going to score. They looked like they were on a mission to get points there. And I'm not talking field goal. I thought they really were going to find their way into the end zone on this particular possession. I don't know if that fumble came on a third down or not. I know it was a dump down to Jimmy Graham. That may have come on a third down, and he did not have the first down in any event. But that's a huge play. Fumbled the football. Bucs scoop it up, take it to the 25. You're thinking this game's going to be over, and then Winston later on throws the interception on that possession to take away a scoring opportunity. But let's talk about the real heroes of this game. The Bucs defense is my last like. They dominated in this game, and if we can get this kind of performance out of them moving forward, this is a scary team down the stretch of this season. This is one of the teams you don't want any part of if this is what you're going to get from them defensively. Problem is, you can't assume you're going to get this from them every week because nothing is safe to assume with this Buccaneers team. You don't know what Jameis Winston is going to show up every week. You don't know what Mike Evans is going to show up every week. You don't know what Buccaneers defense is going to show up every week. But if this Buccaneers defense shows up more times than not down the stretch of this season, not only do they have a chance of getting a wild card, but they have a chance to get that NFC South crown because this defense was dominant. I'm talking elite. That's the type of defensive performance this was. They sacked Russell Wilson 6 times, hit him another 6 times in this game. They forced him into 2 interceptions, could have easily been 3 or 4. They forced 2 fumbles, one of which they recovered. I talked about the Levante David recovery. They were dominant in this game. They were swarming. Russell Wilson had nowhere to go. The 80 yards, he had 80 yards rushing, but if you watch this game, the context in which those 80 yards came don't do this Buccaneers defense justice. They absolutely swallowed his ass up. That offensive line for the Seattle Seahawks has been a question mark all season long. They've had stretches where the offensive line has played well, but let's not kid ourselves. That offensive line is patchwork. It's not up to par for a team that's looking to compete in the playoffs, and they're going to get exposed eventually, and they were exposed in this game. And so they got a lot of work to do over there in Seattle because this Buccaneers team dismantled and systematically took apart that Seattle Seahawks offensive line throughout the course of this game. You go to the dislikes in the second half for both teams. You go back to the Seattle Seahawks, unable to convert on 3rd and 1 with Will Taakafu on a fullback dive. Look, man, you want to win on the road? You want to score more than 5 points? Got to find a way to pick that 3rd and 1 up. And they didn't. And they struggled with the offensive line, which is my next dislike. The offensive line didn't give Russell Wilson a chance in this game. And like I said, I thought Russell Wilson wasn't his best. He didn't make the best decisions. He didn't make the best throws. I thought he could have pulled it on read option a number of times. They were giving him the edge. But make no mistake about it, there were a lot of times where he didn't have anywhere to go. I mean, this guy was looking to run around and try to do something. There was nothing there for him because his offensive line was getting their ass whooped consistently throughout this game. So hats off to the Buccaneers defense once again. But make no mistake about it, the Seattle Seahawks, this was an epic failure on their part. And we've seen this from them this year. Remember, they scored 3 points in a loss to the Los Angeles Rams. They scored 6 points in a tie to the Arizona Cardinals. We've seen them have these stinkers on the offensive side of the football this season. So they're another one of these teams where you look at it and you say, you really don't know what you're getting from week to week. One week they're lighting up the Buffalo Bills at home. One week they're lighting up the New England Patriots on the road. And then the next week, they can't score more than 5 points on the road versus Tampa Bay. You don't know what you're getting from this team. One week, they're lighting the Jets up in New Jersey. The next week, they can only muster 3 points in a loss to the Rams. You just don't know what you're getting from week to week with this Seattle Seahawks team. And so that's a scary proposition because you show up with this kind of effort on the wrong week and your season's done. So this is a really scary situation for the Seahawks moving forward. And the Buccaneers second half dislikes. Doug Martin fumbling the football. You have control of the game. Don't lay it on the carpet. Don't put the church's money on the floor. You know better than that. Come on, man. And this has been a problem for him throughout his career, fumbling the football. We know that. Got to hold on to the ball. This one really wasn't that bad of a fumble. Every fumble is a bad fumble, but he actually had a teammate hit him, knock his arm down, and knock the football loose. So it wasn't like they just took it from him or stripped him. But still, he fumbled the football. Got to hold on to it. You don't expect your teammate to force you to fumble. And those are the ones that usually happen when your teammate hits you, because you don't expect your teammate to be the one to force you to fumble the football. Hands to the face penalty on your offensive lineman, negating a touchdown that would have put this game essentially, for all intents and purposes, out of reach at 21-5. Cameron Brake catches the touchdown. You're thinking that's ball game. The very next play, Jameis Winston throws an interception, leaves the door slightly ajar. So, yeah, it's frustrating. And then, of course, that Jameis Winston interception can do it. You know, worst case scenario, you come away with a field goal opportunity there. Don't throw the ball up into double coverage in no man's land in the end zone and have it picked off. Don't do that. But in any event, dominant performance by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They get this one 14-5. I didn't see this one coming. The defense, they were the absolute all-stars of this football game, the MVPs of this game. And if you ask me, that's the winning formula for the Buccaneers moving forward, because you don't know what you're going to get offensively. If you can get this from the defense, then Jameis Winston should be able to do enough with Mike Evans and the run game to win you football games down the stretch of this season. This defense right here is what you need moving forward in order to win consistently. This was a dominated performance by the Buccaneers defense. And I think if they can play that way, if they can swarm, if they can get after the opposing team's quarterback, and no, you won't be going up against Seattle's offensive line each and every single week. I understand that. But if you can swarm and get after the quarterback like that, if you can slow the running game down like that, if you can generate turnovers and scoring opportunities in short fields for your offense like that, you're going to win more games than you lose down the stretch, which is going to give you an opportunity to make the postseason. Let's get to some of your comments here. Kendall Hardy says, Noah Spence, Defensive Rookie of the Year. I seriously doubt that, but he is playing much better than he did at the beginning of the season. Vincent Coe says, what the hell happened to Seattle's all of a sudden? It's a situation with the Seahawks where you just don't know what you're getting from week to week. But that offensive line, it's not very good. Let's not kid ourselves here. You know, they got George Font at left tackle. This is a guy that had never played left tackle at any particular level. This guy hadn't played offensive line since the 8th grade. He's a basketball player that they converted over to the offensive line. Look, man, you can't get away with this stuff consistently week in and week out. You may get away with it one week against Buffalo, another week against New England. You're going to be exposed at some point. They have to start dedicating more resources to the offensive line, okay? You can't keep getting these undrafted guys out of anywhere and plugging them in. You can't keep getting these linemen and thinking that you're just going to put a guy in there and getting other teams trash, Bradley Soul, and thinking you're going to put him in at right tackle. You're going to get your ass abused. You're going to get Russell Wilson abused if you keep doing this. You're going to have to actually go out and spend the first round, a second round pick on an offensive tackle or two. You can't keep going out and getting the Mark Glowinski's of the world in the 4th and 5th round and thinking that these guys are going to come in and be exceptional for you. That's not the norm in this league. You'd like to think you can get a 5th round guard and he can come in and just be good for you, but that's not always going to be the case. You actually have to spend resources, and I get it. You decided to spend your money on the defensive side of the football, on the core players, on your Doug Baldwins, on your Jermaine Curses, on all those guys that make up the core of this team. I get it. Then you need to spend the resources offensively in the draft on the offensive line and protect your investment in Russell Wilson. You haven't done that, and it's starting to backfire on the Seattle Seahawks. Captain Spartan 04 says, this is Winston versus Mariota debate. Will go on for years. We may never know the answer of who's better. I mean, that's anytime two quarterbacks are taken at the top of a draft behind one another, that's the debate that's going to go on. If Robert Griffin III was good, then that would have been the discussion. Andrew Luck versus Robert Griffin III. It's the same discussion that went on with Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning, but it didn't last long because we saw what Ryan Leaf was. But that's the discussion that always goes on when two quarterbacks are taken 1 and 2 right behind each other in the same draft. Those two are going to be synonymous with each other moving throughout their careers. BE says, glad I picked the Bucs to win this game. With this loss, the Cardinals still have a shot. Look, man, no one ever wants to admit that their season is over. Your season is done. The Cardinals are finished. Okay, didn't you hear Larry Fitzgerald say, we don't have room for error. We don't have a margin for error. Didn't you hear all of those players talking about how important that Falcons game was? You're 4-6-1, dude. Your season is dead. Dead, I tell you. No one ever wants to hear that, but I'm willing to tell you to your face, as a man, your season's done. Your season's done. Captain Spartan 04 says, I thought this would be one of the games the Bucs would need a compliment to Mike Evans to win the game. I thought that they would need a much sharper offensive performance to win, but who saw the defense stepping up the way that they did in this game? Bucs fan says, do you think my Bucs have a good chance for the playoffs? I won't say it's a good chance, but they have a chance, and that's all you can ask for this time of the year, is that when you look up at that playoff hunt box on the screen, and you see that other screen that says in the hunt, and you see the actual playoff picture, then you see the teams in the hunt, you just at least want to see your team's name in the hunt. And right now the Buccaneers are in the hunt. They're right there. They're a game out of a playoff spot right now. So they just got to keep playing ball. That's all it boils down to. But they got some tough games coming up. They got 2 against the Saints, 1 against the Panthers, still got the Cowboys. It's not an easy stretch for them at the end of this season. Let's see what they are able to do with those games. Got to take care of business in the division if you want to have a shot to make the postseason. All right. And that's going to do it. For this breakdown, I'm going to go ahead, give me about a 5-minute intermission, and we're going to jump right into Monday Night Football overtime. You know how we do it. Big win here for the Buccaneers. They get to 6-5 on the season. 2 straight big wins. I did not see them beating Kansas City last week on the road, which was a huge win. Big interception by Chris Conte in the end zone to get that one. And then to turn around and double down on that big win last week with an even bigger one at the crib versus Seattle. Boy, this Bucs team starting to smell themselves. Let's see if they can keep it going as they're now 6-5 on the season. Meanwhile, Seattle drops to 7-3-1 on the season. This is an ugly loss, but it's one that it can rebound from. But again, this just shows you how vulnerable this Seattle Seahawks team is. And everyone was sitting there talking about how this is the team that's going to beat Dallas. This is the team that's going to do this and do that. This team isn't going to do anything if this offensive line doesn't play better. I can assure you of that. But Buccaneers get the win, 14-5. And this was a huge one for them as they now have put themselves in a position, 1 game out of first place in the NFC South and right there in a position to strike in the NFC wildcard race as well. So if it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on Lockdown Coverage. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything in the National Football League. I'll be right back to break down the Monday night contest between the Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles. Come back and join me. Remember, we're changing the game 1 live feed at a time. I will see you in about 5 minutes. Come on back and join me. Monday Night Football overtime. See you then.